Welcome to Thirsty Thursdays with a therapist. My name is Jaleisha Gatling. I'm a couples therapist here in New York City, working with people to help them unpack the baggage that gets in between their relationships. Today's topic on Thirsty Thursdays, where we quench the thirst in your relationship, is intimacy. But not the kind of intimacy that you probably are thinking about. What usually comes to mind is physical intimacy or sex, right? Well, today I want to continue our conversation from the last Thirsty Thursdays where we talked about different elements of intimacy that have nothing to do with touch or physical intimacy whatsoever. Just to kind of open up your eyes and broaden your horizons when you think about intimacy and really stepping back and asking yourself, am I and my partner, are we fostering all of these different types of intimacy, and which types of intimacy am I missing? Which ones did we used to have, and maybe that one isn't so lit anymore, right? And so continuing on today, I'm just going to talk about one type because I think it's a biggie and I think it's good enough on its own. We're talking about crisis intimacy. Yes, I said crisis and I followed it with intimacy. What is crisis intimacy? It's basically developing closeness in the thick of crisis, of tragedy, of loss, of some sort of transition that maybe was unexpected, of an external stressor that's been thrown onto one or both partners that is impacting the relationship. It's being able to really move through those difficult times and grow closer through it. And so this can be a really, really strong point for some couples, and other areas of intimacy may not be that strong, which is really, really interesting because I find that people tend to think about intimacy on two levels. They think about it in terms of emotional intimacy, and they think about physical sexual intimacy. And there's so many more than that. And you can actually really maybe need to work on deepening your emotional intimacy or connection with your partner, but be really solid and stellar in crisis. I mean, I know some people who are just rock solid in the worst of circumstances, but they can fight for 3 hours and, have a silent treatment for 3 days over dishes. It's like insane, right? So, yeah, crisis intimacy is really important. I mean, long story short, it's how do we navigate and stay connected and supportive to one another when bleep hits the fan. Like essentially that's what crisis intimacy is. I mean, we're talking about transitions such as having a child, raising a family, moving, the loss of a job, financial strains, illness, aging, your parents aging. I mean, all these different things that can really impact our emotional well-being and cause a lot of stress. It's imperative that you are working on fostering your crisis intimacy. And again, I mean, crisis intimacy, having that be a really strong muscle in your relationship is not only great for crisis, but it's also great for conflict intimacy, which I wasn't even going to talk about that today. But now that I'm like on the spot, I feel like it's really relative, because if you're able to really come together and go through any sort of battle that life is throwing at you together and not allow it to get in between the two of you, you're going to be really rock solid when it comes to conflict resolution. And conflict intimacy is its own intimacy in terms of how you navigate conflict, and if you can do it respectfully, accepting and working through one another's differences rather than trying to change or blame. Okay, a healthy conflict intimacy within a relationship doesn't have criticism or name calling or stonewalling or turning away from one another in the thick of it. It's turning towards one another. And so I feel like conflict intimacy and crisis intimacy, they're kind of like hand in hand. They're like sisters or stepsisters, whatever. So I didn't plan on talking about that, so I won't say more on that. But crisis intimacy is really, really important. And it's something to kind of step back and maybe ask yourself, is that an area where we could work on strengthening? And sometimes fostering one one type of intimacy that has been lacking, that we didn't even know was a thing, can really bleed into other areas and making them stronger as well. And sometimes we may find ourselves only in conflict in times of crisis, where we completely disconnect, and there's a lot of distance between us. And so if that's the case with you, trying to foster that sort of intimacy can be really, really important if you're not starving or hungry for other forms of intimacy. So I'll leave you with that. And I also wanted to remind you, if you missed last week's Thirsty Thursdays on intimacy, I was talking about humor intimacy and creative intimacy. Make sure you go back to that and check that out so that you can kind of stay abreast of where I'm going as I'm connecting all of these. I'll be continuing to talk about intimacy in the next Thirsty Thursdays as well. I also wanted to remind you, if you missed the last video as well, that I am offering for a very limited time video consultations. I generally do 15-minute consultations, but I am offering for a very limited time free 15-minute video consultations to clients who may be on the fence about online video therapy. I was talking about how I've had a lot of really positive experiences with clients that were like a perfect fit for me, and we really wouldn't be able to work together if it wasn't for the accessibility and convenience of doing online video therapy. And so I'm really loving it. I'm digging it. My clients are digging it. And I'm hearing people sometimes kind of like hem and haw about the possibility of it. And I thought it would be great to offer a video consult so that you could get a little taste of what it would be like, and kind of fight some of the myths that might be out there about online therapy not being as effective, not feeling like you can connect, because you can. So if you're interested in that, make sure you sign up for a consult and we can set that up. You guys can book straight through my calendar in the link below. Make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel as well if you are not, so that you don't miss the next Thirsty Thursdays. I will be talking about financial intimacy. You don't want to miss this one, guys. It's going to be really good. All right.